You're welcome along Wednesday evening here on Off the Ball. So we introduced last night's show by saying it had the potential to be a defining night for a generation of Irish footballers. Safe to say that has come to pass. World Cup 2023 sounds very nice. Place booked, history made. Amber Barrett, we salute you. Vera Powell will be on the show this evening. Plenty of player reaction recorded last night as well between now and 10 o'clock. 53106 is the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Just to add to the feel-good factor, Kenny Cunningham in studio. Hello.
Yeah, evening lads.
Did you bring your crossword? Thank God for that. Mick McCarthy as well. Hello.
Hey Joe, hey Kenny.
And called Denny with us as well because I do this every time, Mullaney. That's twice.
Compliment. That's a huge
That's
compliment.
twice.
Oh my God.
It's unbelievable. Two in a row.
Huge gaff.
2 in a row. I'm so
Big
sorry.
compliment.
What is
That was
that?
off the tongue.
That's now
That's a thing. It's a slip, Freudian slip. No, that's not the right
Freudian.
word. No, it's not the right word.
what's the word I'm looking for?
Idiotic.
Pushing that mic a bit closer to you.
Oh yeah.
So yes,
Trouble already, Kenny.
Carl, you're very welcome. Richie not with us. So World Cup 2023 is on the horizon. One of the stats I saw which really put the achievement into context was made this morning on the AM show. So 54 European teams have the opportunity to qualify for the World Cup. 54 teams involved in qualifying. Only 11 from Europe get through. It is very, very difficult to get through in Europe. It is home to a lot of the strongest teams in world football. And what's more, the seeding, the pre-qualification seeding of the teams who have made it through. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 11th, and then Ireland 21st. So the number of rungs on the ladder that have been jumped here to make a World Cup, because for so long the team was talked about, well, there's potential and they could reach major championships. And realistically, it was always a European Championships people I think we're talking about. And here they go and make a World Cup. So it's absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah, it's an amazing leap, isn't it? Like to go from, that's kind of Irish stories of the past, isn't it? Like that we're going to out fielding our expectations. Like, I didn't realise we were that far down actually. Yeah. To kind of like almost go from, what's it, from 21st?
21st, yeah.
21st to 11th, yeah.
So that's quite something, and I'm sure you were looking on.
It's not massive. That's not massive. I'm going to stick up for the gas here, Liv. I don't think that's a massive chasm. I take the point that you're saying.
What happened to 12, 13,
logically,
14, 15, 16,
that's
17,
what I'm saying.
18,
yeah,
19, 20?
Logically, but I'm looking at those. The last couple of games I've seen. Say that game last night against Scotland. And woman to woman, we were the better team. We were better than that Scotland team last night. I actually thought we made it harder for ourselves than we should have. So we should have won that game last night in terms of the quality of player that we had on the pitch. So I take your point to a certain extent. I understand where we are. But from what I saw last night of that game and what I've seen previously in other games, we've been in the ascendancy. And I've been looking around our team and thinking we're better. All over the pitch, player to player. We've got better players on the pitch. We should be winning. And that's what's been happening. So, yeah.
Interesting.
That's all I'm saying in that respect.
Playing to their potential more in this tournament than they probably have in the past. But maybe they shouldn't have been so far down in the seedings.
But that's always the case, isn't it? A team, you have to, I never buy into this playing above themselves or, for me, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think it exists. Like playing above yourselves, mate. That's like fantasy stuff. You play to your potential. And the challenge when you go onto a football pitch, whether it's club or international football, kind of week in, week out, is how close can you get to your top level, wherever that top ceiling is. And that's the challenge. The fact is you never get there.
Sure.
I've never played in the team that went on the pitch for 90 minutes. Yeah. Everybody excelled and done everything right in every moment in the game. But that's the challenge. That's what kind of drives you. And the very best teams can kind of get as close to that more often than not on a regular basis. So
it's always interesting to get your perspective, given that you've been there and done it, because you could look at the game last night and you could see Scotland putting nice little patterns together at times in midfield and having a bit more of the ball than Ireland, and you could think to yourself, well, they look like the better technicians and Ireland are defending resolutely.
But we gave it up. I was surprised. I didn't know anything about that. I've never seen that Scotland team play last night. Obviously, Vera Powell and the players and the coaching staff, they've done all their homework. They knew exactly what they were coming up against. But kind of 15, 20 minutes into that game last night, I was looking at thinking, don't think these can hurt us really.
Yeah.
Scotland again, similar to what I'm saying. I was looking around the pitch thinking, yeah, we've got the advantage here. We're better than these. If we can get the ball, take the ball off these, have more, and get into their half of the pitch more regularly, we're gonna hurt these. But it seemed to be the tactics seemed to be a little bit more passive, drop off, that kind of low defensive block, and actually give up the ball. You're talking about Scotland controlling the ball. When you give the team, the opposition team, the ball, they're not controlling it.
Yeah.
You know, you're giving them the ball, and that's what I saw. So it was I was surprised for the majority of last night how actually passive we were. I thought we should have grasped that game by the net a lot earlier and really gone for the juggler. And as that game drifted into the second half, I was getting a bit worried because I was thinking we're a better team here, but we're not showing it. We're not really grasping the moment here. Thankfully, it didn't come to fruition. We obviously got a great goal and went down and won the game. Thankfully, but I was a little bit worried for that reason. I just felt as if no, we need to be a little bit bolder here. We need to get after them because we're good. They can't deal with us in large areas of the pitch.
Interesting, yeah. And then the finish was
Yeah, what a goal.
a beauty, really. I mean,
This finish, right? I'm gonna Louisa Sullivan plays a beautiful
Denise,
pass.
yeah.
Denise Sullivan, excuse me, and it has to be hit that early, otherwise Scottish right back gets herself back on the cover. That gap kind of closes up. So as soon as the pass is paid, brilliant. But after that, Amber Barrett, it's almost like it's perfect.
yeah,
The first touch, it's got to be a big one.
yeah.
Away from the defender, use that speed, put a little bit of distance between yourself and the recovering Scottish defender. Then the second touch, and that second, I'd be fascinated to talk to her in terms of what was going through her head at that moment, because she's naturally right-footed player. Really, that next touch, you want to take it out to your right, on your right side, to take with the inside of your right foot. But by doing that, you're bringing the recovering defender into play. She might be able to slide in and make a tackle.
Yeah.
So then you think, well, shift it onto your left, away from the recovering defender. They've no chance. But of course, by shifting it onto your left, you're cutting the angle and you're putting it onto your weaker foot. So I think I'd be interested in asking, was that second touch deliberate in terms of straight ahead?
Yeah.
It was a little touch, so she kept it close. She kept it close to her, but by taking it centrally, she couldn't almost open her body up to take with the inside of her right foot. That kind of that Henri twist your body in motion and slow to the inside of your right foot. So then it really opened itself up for the toe punt, the little toe finish, which is actually a brilliant finish.
Yeah.
If you can execute it, you don't see it too often. I played against some players who used to be able to do it, and the great thing, no backlift. You get the shot off quick, and you'll notice keepers never dive, because it comes too quick. They can't set themselves. When they see you twist your body and open your right foot to pass it, they've got a split second to plant their feet and lean that way, and they're on their way as the shot comes. That little toe punt, it leaves your foot so quick, they just can't react. As people think toe punch, in your head, kicking on the streets, the old toe punt. But it's actually a brilliant finish. So that's what I'm saying. From start to finish, as soon as they made the run, the quality of the ball into her, but then after them first two touches, and then the finish was brilliant. It actually stood alone in terms of what we'd seen for most of the game, which was very kind of frenetic, nervous, fragmented game of football. Probably in a lot of respects was a poor quality game, which is understandable. So much at stake. I've played in them myself. So much at stake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like hot potato job. But that moment, that passage of play was probably deserved to win the game. It was kind of standout moment.
Isn't it mad how much it has to go through your head in 3-4 seconds? Because you're saying all that stuff that she had to decide upon, and then in the interview afterwards, she's talking about as well. It's like, I wanted to chip it over the keeper, but she wasn't coming. So then I had to kind of react to that as well, and
She said we knew the keeper doesn't like coming off her line. So they'd actually done a bit of prep work and said, I knew the keeper wasn't coming off the line.
Okay, yeah. She said chipping it over was her first choice as well, though. So maybe that's more in practice than in the actual event of the night. Yeah, but
and then of course the celebration's iconic. Instantly I saw the celebration and I thought, oh wow, that is just absolutely stunning, beautiful moment. And she talked afterwards. It's not just I'm done a goal. It's I know crease law, and my grandparents are there, and I know first responders, and I know people who are hurt. This is, I know it like the back of my hand.
I'd have to, that post-match interview which she did, I've got to be honest with you, absolutely blew me away.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
Yeah. I was trying not to cry on the
to
bus at home last night watching
For
it.
somebody who kind of spoke, you could have given me 6 hours prep before an interview like that, and I couldn't have been able to put that across as well. As she did, to be as spontaneous as that and kind of as heartfelt as it was, and spoke and just the tone was like pitch perfect, wasn't it, in terms of explaining how delighted she was in terms of the moment, what they'd achieved as a team, but also kind of marrying that up with kind of sadness, not really sadness, because kind of
Devastation.
really at what had happened a few days previously. I just thought it was almost like it was a beautiful moment,
Really beautiful. We've spoken to Amber a few times on the show. She's playing her football in Germany, and anytime she speaks, she's very interesting, super intelligent. But I mean, that was just another level of composure and, as you said, eloquence under that kind of pressure.
Yeah.
Because when you're talking about something, we would find here even you're talking about something that tragic and that devastating. You don't want to say the wrong thing.
Exactly.
You don't want to use the wrong word.
Out of context. Exactly. Yeah. You cause a bit of hurt to people. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I think the whole country at that interview went, "My God." Wow. Of anything we've heard in the last week, not to do a disservice to anyone who spoke last week, that's right up there,
Yeah. Well, this what makes you kind of, you talk about pride in the jersey and the football, but for me it's just as much people. Pride in your own, when you talk about pride in your own people, this thing, I love being, the T-shirts, we're lucky being Irish and all. Now it's all a bit of a laugh and a joke and this type of thing, you know what I mean? But for me, that's what it is, kind of. I think there is a truth there at the bottom of it in terms of that bit of pride in ourselves and kind of what we stand for. And I think she kind of epitomised it the other night in terms of how she spoke. I think that was the very, in that whatever couple of minutes that she spoke, that was the very best really of what we've got in this country. I think that's what we're talking about in terms of when we talk in those terms.
Hi Joe, please tell Kenny it's actually called a toe peg. See, different parts of the world it's called a different thing.
What did you say? Toe poke?
He said toe poke.
Yeah.
I think Amber Barrett said big toe.
Big toe, yeah.
A big toe.
Toe
What did I call it?
Toe poke.
Toe poke. It was
toe
more
poke.
It was more of a poke.
Toe poke is the universal.
It was a
Peg.
stab. It was a stab.
Peg doesn't make any sense.
No, I don't think so either.
Toe
I'm
peg.
thinking the peg on the line. I'm thinking now they're washing at the peg on the. That makes no sense, does it?
Bog toe is more of a big punt. Bog toe? You heard bog toe? He bog toed it?
He bog-toed it.
Toe
Is that a
bog.
country thing now? Would that be a country thing?
It was a
Are you?
North Kildare thing. I don't know.
That's in between. North Kildare's kind of not one or the other. You're not one or the other there, Joe. Really, are you?
No man's land, really.
You're
Not wanted by
close.
either.
You want to head towards the
Some did, some didn't.
big smoke, but
No, it's divided.
You still have Dublin bus.
We had Dublin bus.
Yeah, you're outside of Dublin, but you have Dublin bus.
So Dublin definitely
Pale.
didn't count us.
The Pale traditionally, isn't it? Is that where you are?
No, I think the Pale's a bit wider than
Dublin.
Kildare.
Oh yeah, but you're part
Of the Pale.
of the Pale, yeah.
I suppose if you want to put in those terms, we can, yeah.
Basically West Lucan.
Yeah. We should start the news round, which is brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. And so, Carl, I mean, talk about a quick news cycle. There is the euphoria and the amazing interviews and all the excitement and just like a purity of a great occasion. And then we have our controversy. So Vera Pauw has been talking today about the video, the singing afterwards.
Yes, so the Republic of Ireland manager Vera Pauw says reaching the World Cup is the reason she took the job. The girls in green made history, winning their playoff last night by a 1-0 against Scotland to secure their place at the finals for the first time. But the players and the management have apologised for any offence caused by a song sung by the players in the dressing room after the match. A video circulated on social media of the players appearing to chant a pro-IRA song, and Pauw addressed the incident when speaking earlier today.
We should have taken responsibility and we should have been aware, and it doesn't mean anything that the problem is that went on social media. The only thing that what was important is that it was happening. And I must say, if I would have been in the dressing room, I don't know the song. I know the sensitivities, but I don't know the song. So I wouldn't have been able, that's the downside of a foreign coach, I wouldn't have been able to interrupt it. But the thing is that the players never meant to hurt anyone, but they did hurt people. And that is the same when something else happened. You don't mean to hurt somebody, but you hurt and there's people offended. So that means that it's wrong in itself. So we're deeply sorry. We want to apologize to everybody who's offended by this. And this is not a statement to make things good. This is a statement that is deep down into our values of our team.
We're going to play the full Vera Pauw interview. She was speaking with Nathan in Dublin this morning, about 15 minutes. I think the fallout from the video is a big part of that. The statement at that stage had just been released, and Vera Pauw spoke to any media who wanted to speak to her. I would say, first off, did exactly the right thing. There was no silly denial or you misheard the word or this didn't happen in the way you think. It was a full-on, it's exactly what it looked like. and apology and out in front of it, which is, I think, the right thing to do. And she spoke incredibly well, I would have said, across every interview I saw, for starters.
Yeah. And in some ways, it made the story bigger. People hadn't gone on it, but I think in the long run, it's going to help. You know, there's a mea culpa to that. There's definitely no harm to it. And I thought Vera Pauw spoke very well. Like, it's obviously taken on a life of its own now, as I think that was predictable, like with these things. And it's got to the stage now where in some quarters, and not everywhere, it is almost overshadowing what happened last night, which is just such a pity, whatever way you want to look at it, whether it's right or wrong, or whether, you know, there should be this reaction or not. I think people will have different views on that. But it's just such a pity, because last night was magic, like, and it really was. And you think of, like, we've been talking about this match without bringing it up, the whole women's sport thing, which is good, you know, but at the same time, that was a big moment last night. That was a game where the whole country got behind a women's football team in the way that's never happened before, and it was the only story in town on a Champions League night. And there was something it felt like a kind of a red letter day in Irish sport, I thought. And then this morning, as the day went on, the non-sport media that was covering this so well this morning started talking about something else. And that's just such a pity, I think, because there was a real chance there. And I still think we'll get it, and we'll have the World Cup next year and everything.
Yeah. I feel for the girls, I've got to be honest with you, because they would have bounced out of beds this morning thinking, oof, the day ahead of them today, phone calls, interviews, more the same, that kind of feel good, you know, can't get enough of that, you know what I mean? And they've deserved it, they've earned it, you know, they've kind of worked hard enough over a long number of years, and that's been kind of taken away from them. Now you could say, look, it was off their own doing to a certain extent, they understand that. But that said, I do feel for them in that respect, because it's not easy if they're having to sit down today and answer questions on this topic. I think we're all worldly wise enough to know it's not easy. This is not as simple an issue as some people would think. Particularly if you're coming from our perspective in Ireland, if you've got any type of understanding in terms of our kind of general history, you'll understand how complex this thing is, like, you know what I mean? It just can't be spoken about in a quick 10-15 second, you know what I mean, throwaway comment and stuff. This is a very complex thing, and I'm not saying those the girls in terms. For me, my gut feeling when I heard it today was that the girls were very much just caught up in the moment in terms of what they were singing. I think they were singing for about half an hour from what I heard, and this was kind of part of it. And I don't think there was a realisation amongst all of the players there exactly what they were putting out there. I think it was caught up in the moment, very emotional, obviously high in terms of excitement, the whole shebang, and it kind of came out of them. So I think you have to appreciate that. And I think you do have to cut them a little bit of slack because of that. I can't get into each one of those girls' heads and know exactly what they're thinking at that given moment. But I genuinely think people will be looking at that, particularly Irish people, for the reasons that I've said, and saying, okay, yeah, I understand what's going on here, and I'm prepared to give the girls the benefit of the doubt.
I suppose, like, it's to and fro. There's the backlash, and then there's the backlash to the backlash. I'm not sure at which stage Rob Wooten got involved with Chloe Mustaki and was asking her, do you need to be better educated? And that kind of drew massive response, you know, kind of, English broadcasters saying this to Irish player, and that prompted more discussion, especially online. Like, I think you make very fair points, absolutely. I mean, I didn't love seeing it, I have to say. Like, my first reaction was, oh dear, this, like, in a jersey on such a feel-good moment. And I think you also, Kenny, make a very fair point, which is there are an array of personalities and backgrounds in that dressing room. So for some, like this, you know, very nationalist thinking, and this, you know, very much part of their upbringing and their culture, and they'd feel strongly about it and may not have any regrets. Others somewhere in between. Others probably, you know, would say, geez, I'm not totally au fait with why this is so offensive, and I didn't grow up in this period. It's not a lived experience. But I think, to be fair, like, I would sort of say, whatever your persuasion, it's kind of an interesting thing, not just in that dressing room, but maybe in Irish culture generally, Mick, that, like, you know, you are, again, whatever your persuasion, you are still at the end of the day talking about brutal murders of innocent people. And so to be casual about that, to be celebratory about that, to normalise it, to, you know, because that is just a thing that's in Irish culture of all ages, including the latest generation, that they'll just throw that around, probably a touch carelessly. Now, if you want to have, as Kenny said, if you want to sit down and let's talk about Irish history for 3 hours, you know, you'll realise how complex it all is. But maybe like that style of singing and that being just, you know, thrown around too carelessly at moments like that. I mean, maybe it's a good moment for everyone to go, well, you know, why is that sung in pubs as much as it is so carelessly? With, you know, is that the, again, you may be of the persuasion where you think, well, hang on a second, you know, you go back to the north, this is absolutely, you know, they had to fight, they had no choice. Say that's your persuasion. It's not mine personally. I didn't live it. I don't know what I've read about it, which is different. But like, there's ways to pay tribute to it, and maybe that's not top of the list in that kind of environment. You know,
see, it's such a glib song that's about, like, it's about Celtic, that song.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's a song that's played, and it's like, it's a silly chant in the middle of it. So I don't think it buys into, it's certainly not a mature conversation about our history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's nothing to do with that. And I think you're right. I think, look, these things happen, and they're a good chance to kind of, I think, talk about something that is like fairly widespread and is glib. Again, isn't politically motivated and isn't thoughtful.
Yeah.
It's just something that people do, and I think that's okay. It's okay every now and then to kind of say, hold on, like there's issues with that, and there's rightfully people offended and so on. I think in this case, right, from my point of view, right, and it's only my opinion, is that I've heard that song sang a million times. It's played in coppers. Do you know what I mean? It is not an unusual song. It's a song, again, it's about Celtic, right? And it's got this stupid line in the middle of it that's in there to kind of get people chanting and doing exactly what the girls did in the dressing room last night, right? It's a bit of messing. And they're not thinking of the consequences, and they're not thinking of everything that happened. And look, reality strikes, and it's, I don't know if it's ruined their day, but you know what I mean? It might have ruined the experience in some ways, like Kenny said. And, you know, fair enough, like there's consequences that they're responsible to the Irish jersey, responsible to the FAI. It's okay, but I just think in terms of villainising them for it, it was songs played in the dressing room, it was a bit of dancing. I don't think you could ascribe a pro-IRA sentiment to any of that. And that's obviously the way some of the spin in some of the media, not necessarily Sky, but like, you know, because I thought that was in some ways a fair conversation. It might have just been, it came across pretty badly. But I think in some of the tabloid media, you're talking about, like, you know, pro-IRA chants and stuff like that. If you actually know what it isn't that at all. It's just a bit of mess.
As you said, there is that bit of messing aspect to it. Like it's odd, you know. And I'd say,
and maybe that's not good enough, but that's what it is.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, and even like, how could you explain that aspect of Vera Pauw? Like,
I know,
it's incredibly serious,
Pauw,
but then there's a kind of bravado, bit of crack to it as well, even though it's incredibly serious. And you know, you.
Yeah, I think you've almost got to have lived it. You've had to be surrounded by and kind of lived through it to an extent. And like you say, everybody's experiences are different. Those people growing up in the north over the last 50 years, very different life experiences to us here, predominantly in the south. And you have to appreciate that. And you've also got to appreciate. I spent most of my life over in the UK. I left Dublin when I was 18, so I lived most of my life in the UK, so I have somewhat of, in terms of perspective, in terms of how we're viewed over in the UK. And I think it's an actual shame, because I've always felt the relationship between Irish and, say, Irish and English people, British people in general, is a very good one. So much in common. There's actually a huge amount of love there. When I played for the national team, huge amount of like good sentiment came from people, neighbours, friends, teammates, in terms of wanting me to do well, the Irish national team and all that kind of thing, like, you know what I mean? But there'd be a bit of ignorance. I mean, that lad's talking about that English report, talking about ignorance in behalf of, like, you know, what we're talking about. There'd be a huge amount of ignorance in terms in England, in terms of the relationship between Ireland and the UK over the last 200 years.
Way more on their
over
side.
the last, absolutely. So that one doesn't stand up at all, like, you know what I mean, in terms of. But I think you do have to be careful. Yeah, words matter, don't they? Yeah, absolutely. And if this was like, I think it does. Now, people have dismissed this today a little bit. The fact it came out on kind of social media. This wasn't the girls in public putting this out there, like ramming this down kind of people's throat. This was somebody spur of the moment. There was social media content involved, wasn't it, in terms of throwing these things up, and it actually got out. So I think there's something to be learned.
It's something to be learned about. Oh, listen, I suspect the age of innocence now, and how that team, this now very high-profile team, behave is probably a line in the sand. But on your point, there was an RTE camera like right in there in the huddle, and there was like photographer. So like
Yeah.
that probably underlines the point that nobody felt this is actually anything to hide away or that this is wrong, which goes back to our conversation that again for some it's just like, oh, this is just a bit of crack, you know, because that camera was right there, very visible, and there was no sense of, oh, there's a camera there, we better stop.
Yeah, and
singing
this is very
you know?
new. This is very new to the ladies' team. But this amount of exposure that they're getting, particularly over the last year, it's gone from zero to like just into the stratosphere, really, in terms of the exposure that they're getting. Very you know,
it's new.
Not easy. Like, yeah, I mean, even me coming into the professional game, I just couldn't deal with it at all. Like, and that's going to take a little bit of time. And like we were saying, I think we have to cut the team a little bit of slack in that respect. But obviously themselves, I think they'll have to wisen up a little bit themselves. And if I had one bit of advice to kind of air, I'm not one to dispel advice to the team, like going forward that World Cup coming up next year, get rid of the cameras. And I mean, I'm not saying I speak for a big swathe of the population, but I was watching that game last night, the post-match scenes on the pitch. We've spoken about the interviews, Amber Barrett's interview, Vera Powell, the scenes, the pitches, the interaction with the players, absolutely amazing. When those girls, the team turned to walk around down the tunnel back into the dressing room, I'd seen enough. That was perfect for me. That was everything I needed to see. I did not need to be taken into that dressing room afterwards and to say anything that was going on, whether it was a national broadcaster, whether it was social media. I'm not interested. And I think the girls themselves, I hope they realise themselves going forward how they interact in the confines of that dressing room should stay in there. Because Joe, that's what's special, and they're the memories that they're going to value the most.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that it's whatever they experience in there in the dressing room,
I get all that.
It's unique to them.
Point taken.
Rather than an obligation or some kind of a subconscious thing where we've got to share this with everybody, we've got to throw it out there and get as much people invested in this. I don't understand it. I mean, I was watching the England women's team celebrate the European Championships in the summer. I was watching their English manager the day after the game, giving an interview to the media. The door gets kicked open, and the team come in and start dancing around the table, jumping up and like dancing in front of the manager. I mean, I'm thinking, what's going on? This is cringe stuff. It was embarrassing. I thought. I don't understand. Yeah, but I really don't understand it. I think that's part of it. I just feel as if there's a time and a place, and I think that dressing room, and I'm sure the penny will drop the girls, and I would encourage them to literally.
Grant, no,
when
point
that
made.
door shuts, keep it shut for the reasons that we're saying.
The only thing I'd say to that, point taken, understood all that. I thought it was great that Vera Powell a few times today was asked about that aspect, that it had leaked out, and she said, this is not about the video. This instance, it's about that song was sung, and we don't think that's appropriate for our group. And I thought that was a very good answer to that as well. But I do take your.
But I think there is an additional point there about the video. You know what I mean? I don't understand. I don't think there's any need for. I don't understand why the teams, whether it's predominantly the men's game as well, we're seeing it. I really don't There's
no putting the toothpaste back in the tube on that one, though. It's like that is just what people will do now. They'll have their phones out. It's like that's how people experience things. Is Joe's jumping up and down of excitement. My thing is filming him doing it rather than actually enjoying it. I don't understand it. I don't think. Cathal probably the only one in the room of that generation. But
Cathal, what's wrong with your generation? Wise up.
We went to I won't linger on, but we qualified for the World Cup whenever it was 2002. And we went and beat Iran the second leg, and they scored a late goal. It was a little bit hard and scared, and we just got there, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know, so on the pitch, acknowledge the fans and a little bit whatever, and then back into the dressing room. And I remember we came into that dressing room, we sat down, and it was almost like you could hear a pin drop for about 10 minutes. Absolutely nothing said. Very little said, very little spoken. Just quiet time, just be amongst ourselves. Head up, maybe a little bit of acknowledgement, somebody across the room or whatever. And that was it. And I actually remember Ian Evans at one point saying, bloody hell, lads. Liven up. He's qualified for a World Cup. But I don't look back at that and think, Jays didn't really take advantage. We bounced. We'd have got a camera in there, and we. For me, that's more special because what happened in that 5-10 minutes, only us as a group experienced that, And that's what makes it special to me. If we'd have opened that dressing room, let a camera crew in, then suddenly everything's different. You're aware of the camera, you're performing. You know, it's.
Of course it is. Yeah. When you're being watched, it's different.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's all I'd say. I know it's a little bit of a sidebar. You know what I mean?
No,
in terms of predominantly
great insight.
what we're talking about, but
After this news round, the four of us are going to sit together during the ad break. Just take a look, just to know. No,
We nailed the news
I'm
round.
looking at your clubber when I'm in the studio.
You have got more reaction. So Amber Barrett spoke afterwards, Carl.
Yeah, she did, and she dedicated the goal that she scored to all of those who lost their lives in Creeslaw last Friday. Barrett, who hails from Donegal, came off the bench, and it was her 72nd minute goal that was the difference between the sides. And in her post-match interview, Barrett was quick to acknowledge the performance of the team's goalkeeper, Courtney Brosnan.
I can't believe it. After the game, I said I didn't know what I've just done. I don't know what we've just done. But, you know, you look at little moments, and Courtney saving the first half, and those are just the moments that came for us. So, yes, of course, I scored the goal, but Courtney should be standing beside me because she's equally won us that game.
Well, she was exceptional, Brosnan. And in the last 15 minutes in particular, every time she caught the ball and hit the deck, I thought, well, that
I was
is
going to say, that's
the
half
most frustrating
job,
thing
yeah.
of all time for opposition, and I love it.
I'll tell you what, I don't actually recognise from a couple of years ago. There was a lot of conversation around a couple of years. I remember a couple of games there. There was a couple of individual mistakes. There was a huge amount of criticism. I give her huge credit in terms of, I don't know what she's done in terms of turning our game around, but she looks like a different person, just in terms of body language, confidence.
Yeah.
I know the penalty stave is obviously outstanding, I understand, but for me it was the other parts. But we went to goal up, there was a couple of minutes after, a Scottish player swiveled in the box and she struck it on about 12 yards out, and she hit it really well, crisp shot towards the corner above Courtney Brosnan's hands. And just in the modern game, you got so used to keepers just punching everything away. She grabbed it immediately and brought it down to the ground. I just thought, wow, that's really impressive
as well, yeah.
And then coming for crosses, decision making, the whole thing. So I'd agree. I actually thought she was man of the match. And in a game like that, where I've mentioned so edgy, nervous tension, the whole shebang, you're looking around at people to give you a little bit of confidence, no better. And I know this is a centre half, to look behind you and see your goalkeeper is absolutely in total control of her game, basically unflappable.
Yeah.
And that's how she was. Didn't look as if she was going to get beaten last night.
That's not to mention the penalty save either. Carl, we are right out of time. Do you just want to give us, if you have it handy, Liverpool team news? I suspect people might be interested.
So the Liverpool team is in for tonight's game against Rangers in the Champions League. Alisson starts in goal. It's a back four: Gomez, Kanate, Van Dijk and Tsimikas. Fabinho, then Elliott and Henderson in the middle, with Nunez, Firmino and Carvalho up top for Liverpool tonight. There's one game ongoing in that group, which is Group A at the moment. Napoli lead Ajax by 4 goals to 2. That game now is in added time at the end of the game.
Very good. We're going to sit in for the evening, keep an eye on those games. Kenny will be with us right through until 10 o'clock, so we'll keep you very much updated. Mick, thanks for the time being.
Cheers.
Carl Mullaney,
Thank you, lads.
thank you very much. And Kenny's staying with us. We'll take a very short break. Vera Pauw is going to be with us in just one moment.